Have you ever been called a band geek, a theater nerd, cyber dork, studio rat, gamer punk, orchestra dork, book monkey, drama jock, Poindexter, artsy fartsy, or just plain weird? Well then, welcome to Art Nerds. This is the podcast where we sit down with our nerdy friends, embrace our inner geek, and celebrate our art. Welcome back, my friends. This is Mike O'Brien with Art Nerds. This is the place where we talk with our nerdy friends about their artwork. Today, we are coming... I'm sounding so professional radio today. We are live at the Espresso Royale here in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, with my friend Katie Newhouse. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. We had a little bit of a confusion this morning getting here because there's multiple coffee shops named Espresso Royale.
Which you would think I would know having lived here my whole life, but this is the one I drive past. We just actually had an art show right across the street during Boneyard, so I was super aware of this location. So I stared at the coffee from a distance.
Either way, it works out. Anyway, so Katie's here to talk about her art. Katie, what is your art?
So the medium that I primarily work in is acrylics. But I've dabbled in oils and watercolors and things like that. Primarily, I like to focus on color and shape. Subject matter isn't like a hard and fast thing for me, although I do a lot of animals, do a lot of portraits.
This is going to get fun real quick.
Yeah.
So you consider yourself a fine artist, paint on canvas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, really, to me, art, I think the term fine art is really, it's a little bit tricky to me because I feel like it puts certain types of art up on a pedestal that are great, and I love them. I am the first one to admit I am a Renaissance art nerd. I am.
Right, sure.
I love it. I love Renaissance art. It's full of symbolism and it's just beautiful and this great thing. But that's not all art is. And I think that when we talk about fine art that's specifically painting on canvas or whatever, that's great and I love it and it absolutely is, but it discounts a lot of things that people call craft arts.
Okay.
And I think that those are just as legitimate. I mean, realistically, if you look around us, the building that we're in, the interior design, that's art. The chairs that we're sitting in were designed by artists. Everything we interact with is art. And so I love my canvas painting, but I also try and keep in mind that's not the end all be all of
right. Oh, that's
for me.
That's a great start. I mean, it's a great definition. I mean, I use the term fine art because I come from a very academic background.
Yes.
I have a PhD. I'm an academic. I've been a teacher for years at the college level. So the term fine art is just part of the vernacular out there in that little ivory tower.
Well,
and let me ask you, does that, in your mind, the term fine art, sound very ivory tower to you?
A little bit. I don't. It's funny because I'm the first one to admit that I can be a bit pretentious. I kind of love my pretension. Hannibal's my favorite show. We were talking about my artist tag earlier.
As long as you lean into it, that's fine.
Yeah, but I know that's what it is. I kind of I enjoy it. It's the aestheticism of it. But the company that I started during Prism Studios during the pandemic, a year ago almost, here in a couple of months, it was all predicated on the idea that art education, while highly valuable, you learn a lot. So I went to, when I graduated high school and I initially went to college, I also majored in fine art. So for 1 year. And it ruined it for me. I quit painting. I quit drawing.
Really?
I did.
Why?
Well, in part, I think it was because I was working 2 jobs while I was a full-time student.
Oh, sure.
Which I think most people can really identify with these days.
That's a very practical reason, yeah.
And so it was just exhaustion. But it was also, I remember a teacher at one point saying, you don't go to school to learn how to make art for you. And there was very much, this is right and this is wrong. And I can appreciate the necessity of certain background information, certain techniques when we're talking about line and color and shape and form. They're valuable, but they're not hard and fast rules. And when you start looking at art, because again, I think people look at Renaissance, again, this is my pretension, they look at Renaissance art and they think Michelangelo and Da Vinci,
yeah.
and they think that's the art, that's the thing.
The pinnacle
and
of, yeah.
that's the only way to do it. But that is very Eurocentric. It's very, I don't want to use the word closed-minded because I think that that's not necessarily the kindest way to say it, but you know, when you start looking at art from other cultures,
absolutely, no.
There's so much more to it.
Right, and like I said earlier, I come from a very academic background in the whole thing, so all of this rings not true but familiar. Mm-hmm. And part of this podcast is breaking down those things that you're talking about. You know, I want all art on the table, and to call it art and love it and appreciate it. So thank you for all of these comments already. So in terms of what you consider art, there is no difference between craft and art and hobbyist stuff.
Not necessarily. I think that, I mean, it depends on what aspect of art you're looking at. So if we're looking at design, no, I don't think when it comes to design, like, it takes, in my opinion, as much skill to design a aesthetically pleasing and functional piece of furniture as it does to design a canvas.
Sure.
That is a skill that does not it transfers. It's the same thing. Now, I think then when we start talking about, like, intention, are you trying to tell a story? Are you trying to share a viewpoint? Are you trying to sell something? Are you trying to what's your statement? And I don't think any of those things there's a hard and fast, well, this makes it art and this doesn't. It's very much like a sliding scale, you know?
Yeah, right. No, that's very interesting.
And when you think about, people love to talk about, like, Duchamp and, like the banana duct tape to a wall, right? People love to bring that up. And I'm one of those people where it's very easy for me to look at that and be like,
but is it art?
Is it art? I don't know.
Right.
But more importantly, it makes us question what is art and what we're doing with our intention, with our and in trying to, make these value judgments.
Well, I think it's a value judgment, because my daughter, my youngest, graduated with she's a graphic designer. She works with two industries primarily, and that is print and bookmaking.
Oh, that's
and
so
she
cool.
also works with museum installations. So her purpose is very, very different. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to listen to her and watch her work and see her work, because what she does is amazing.
It very much is. We just set a show up at the IMC, and it's so fun watching every artist and how they set up their own installations. Right. Because that's the thing, like, the work itself is art, but how you lay it out, how you design it, there are galleries that you go into that it's so minimalist and you might only have a few pieces, and that's really impactful and really intentional, but sometimes it's just like a riot of art and color. And that's also a valid way of telling a story.
Right.
And it's just a different story.
Right.
And I love that about how flexible it is.
Yeah, and to listen to my daughter talk about it, and she also does her own artwork for herself. She has found Sculpey. The clay you bake and it turns permanent. She has found that, and she has found that she loves sculpting these miniature figurines for her garden, and it's adorable.
I love that.
So through her eyes, everything you say is true, because it's all art. Mm-hmm. It's all manipulation of materials, but every inch of it is a different purpose in mind, which I think is interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I think
you're echoing everything.
Yeah, I think that purpose is, like, truly, I think, yeah, all of it can be considered art, and then it just comes down to what purpose it's trying to serve,
Right.
and that doesn't make it not, or it doesn't make it art or not art. It's just what purpose does it serve.
Right.
But it's designed with intention. I feel like that's,
So even the banana taped to the wall,
in its own way, is art because it's making you question.
so the purpose is
It's to make you
question
think.
and not so
Yeah.
much make something you can purchase and hang on your wall.
Exactly. But you know what? There's something to be said. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mark Anthony Macon, who's a local artist.
I've heard the name. I don't know him.
Amazing person. And he talks a lot about trash art and like.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he loves that. Like, he does these amazing mixed media pieces that are chaotic. And I told him, I was like, when I first met him and I was looking at his book and I was like, I want to view your work in one of two ways. After I was looking through his book, I'm like, it's beautiful and I love the individual pieces, and there's pieces of his that I would love to buy, but it's specifically, I'm like, I want to see either a book or I want to be inside a room that is wallpapered from ceiling to floor, and it would be the most colorful, chaotic, horrific, gauche.
Right.
It would be so overwhelming, and I love the idea of it because it's an experience.
Right. It's the absolutely. Mm-hmm. Same experience. I just had the same experience. You know, you see Van Gogh's work in
My favorites.
You see it everywhere. You see it in books. You see it on TV. I got to go to Chicago and see not the experience one, but there's 3 versions of his bedroom, and they were side by side by side. And they're bigger than I thought, and they're beautiful, and they're the same, and they're different. And it's just like, suddenly, it's that experience of being in front of it, being in the same room with it. It
is overwhelming. And I understand that it's not that way for everybody. And I've had a lot of great conversations with people who are like, I love art, but like, I just don't like emotionally connect the way some people do.
Right.
And that's something that I can respect, because there's things that other people emotionally connect to that maybe I don't. But what I love about Van Gogh is he's one of my favorite artists to talk about, because I mean, I think everybody sort of knows the story of how, you know, he was not a successful artist in his
Right.
time. He dealt with mental health issues, which was not uncommon for oil painters at the time, or, you know, hopefully not so much now that we have a better understanding
Of what's in the oil paint.
What's in the oil paint. But, you know, he was this highly, highly talented person that in his time, people just weren't. I don't know if it's that they weren't ready for it. I think that it's kind of common, it seems like, in the art world, where it's not until after you're gone that people start to.
It's too easy to see. It's too easy to judge the work because the artist is standing in front of it.
Yes, and to be honest, I do think that's a little bit of like a societal failing of ours, in that we look at artists as we want to consume what they produce without necessarily respecting the time and effort. Like, I saw this
Right.
really great meme the other day where it was like, one of the most important things for an artist is time to just sit.
Oh yeah,
To
yeah.
just sit in quiet and not have.
To refuel of so.
Yes, and to just think about it. Like, I was the other day, I was trying to start editing a piece that I was working on, and my husband was hanging out with me because I was like, come hang out. And of course, I say come hang out, and that means to him that I want to hang out. And so he's talking D&D and telling me all these great, you know, new character ideas, which I love because we play, and I love that. But I'm like, you know,
Your
I was
head's
like,
not there.
I was like, I need you to be quiet because I have to think. He's like, I thought you were just painting. I'm like, and once I start, I love to turn my brain off and just enjoy the physicality of it. But you need time to just sit and be with it. And I think that we live in a society that so highly values productivity that it doesn't necessarily recognize that in order to be productive, you have to have a way to open yourself up. And that's one of the things that, like, with Prism we do, for me, is great because I do really well when I'm painting with other people.
Okay.
And the thing that my partner didn't understand was, I was like, you need to understand, when we're talking and we're hanging out in a group and I'm painting, and it's the best way for me to paint is when I'm surrounded by other people, is that I'm in and out of that conversation. Like,
right.
And all of the people that I usually paint with, they're like, oh yeah, I'll just like, Katie just disappears for like 30 minutes, and
She'll
just says nothing. And then all of a sudden, like, I'll run my mouth for 30 minutes.
Right.
And, but it's almost like I need that little bit of distraction in the community and in the other voices and in all of that in order to offset that lack of quiet time. And it allows me to like distract my brain just enough that I don't overthink.
Okay, now we're getting to that.
Yeah, like it all has.
It makes.
There's a method.
There's a method to the madness.
There's a method to my madness.
Okay.
But really, that's what it is, because one of the hardest parts with making art, when you talk to almost anybody, it's getting started. It's that blank canvas. It's weird.
It's that overcoming inertia for me. It's just,
it is.
I gotta get off the couch. I gotta get downstairs in front of the workbench and decide on something.
What am I going to... Yeah, the other night I was sitting there with like 3 or 4 canvases, just staring at them like, I don't even know what I want to work on, but I know I want to work.
Yeah.
And that's why, and so like talking to Katye is so much fun. She comes over all the time and we paint together. My basement is like a constant rotation of people coming over and hanging out in my private studio,
right.
And we work together because that communal aspect of making art. And people don't necessarily think about it, but even Van Gogh, like there were art groups, like he was close with Gauguin and with other artists where they worked together. So
this notion of the artist alone in their room is bunk, for you at least.
I think that has its place for some people, because not everybody, to be fair, is social in the way that I am. That being said, I think the thing that is bunk is the idea of the suffering artist.
Right.
As somebody that has dealt with mental illness my entire life, I don't need to and shouldn't have to suffer to make good art. And I don't, and I think that that's something that I'm really trying to combat is... It's okay to like come in and be happy and have fun, and it's okay to make maybe dark art and still be a happy person. That's a thing that you can do. That is an aesthetic choice. That is a style. It doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, look, I have a lot of really dark work. A lot of people have said, but I'm a pretty happy person, I think, and that's okay. It's an aesthetic thing,
right?
But I don't need to be suffering internally in order to make quality art. And I think that is because so many artists have suffered. And honestly, a big part of that, again, is being poisoned by literally poisoned by the toxic chemicals, historically. Right. A lot of artists did suffer quite a lot. And I think that because of that, we have this tie that's necessary. We have this
stereotype that is lingered.
And it's unnecessary. We're social creatures. We're animals. We are primates.
Well, I think artists more so.
Yes, absolutely. Because there are artists that are this way where they're so internal and they don't use...
Agreed. We're not discounting that. I agree.
But primarily, like, we get very boring as people when we're in a vacuum. We do. Like, it's boring. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the input. Like, I ask on almost all of my pieces, I get input from friends and family, and because, like, I want to make it, I'm making art for me, but I want to make art that touches people. And to me, having that sort of input is, I don't know, it's fun. And we do a lot of like collaborations too.
Right.
Because
I mean,
of that
input is necessary. I mean, again, my background is performing arts. It's art by committee.
Yeah.
All the time. And we have to agree on a certain percentage before it's torture. So yeah, I get this impression that when you're painting in your basement with friends sitting around, is that the fuel that comes to the canvas that
It
enrich,
really is.
or is it just opening up the conduits, opening up the pipelines to let things flow? Because I'm going to talk in images.
Yeah, which I love.
So your brain as an artist, when you're alone and not working, it gets congested and tightens up, and
and I get distracted by things, my phone and the temperature of the room, and like I get so in my head that like any little thing is distracting.
Right. Every itch on your elbow.
Every
is just,
itch on my
oh
elbow,
God.
and it doesn't help that like. A lot of times, especially in the past, I don't get to start painting until late in the evening because
of life.
And that's when, my ADHD medication starts wearing off, and then I get more and more distracted, and then I get tired, and, it's...
And 2 days later.
And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, yeah, I was going to finish that. But, like, when you're with people, it brings...
There's a relaxation.
An energy.
The way you talk,
brings a life. It brings, and again, just enough distraction that I can lean into the physicality of it, because painting is physical. It's a very physical act, and it's one of the reasons I personally struggle with digital art. I love digital artists. I so respect them because I struggle to connect because I can't feel it. And I know they make these new pens that are way better and they like are more accurate and it's better, but like feeling the paint, like I paint with my fingers. I finger paint. I paint with sponges and with bubble wrap, and also like traditional tools are great, but like I'll paint with anything because I want to feel it. I want to like get those chewy, crunchy sort of textures.
Yeah, again, back to my daughter, the graphic artist. She can do 99% of her work on a computer, whether it's the laptop, whether it's her tablet with the pen, and she creates amazing stuff.
It's insane.
Yeah, and I envy that because I can't do it either.
We have another local artist. His name's Christopher Remy, and he's just making it out onto the art scene. He had his first art show during Boneyard at Soul Care and sold some work at his first show. It was amazing. And he does digital work. And we just ran into each other on campus one day and started chatting, and I was wearing my Prism mask, and so that's how we love that branded mask. I'm never giving up my masks because it's perfect, and it's got a rainbow on it, and who doesn't love that?
Right.
And he's got, he was showing me how like he's got one of those really cool like flippy open phones where it like gets
the old school,
the new ones where it's like and the art that he makes on that is, first of all, it blows my mind because it's so small. Like I can't like. I don't know if it's just my bad eyesight or what, but like I need a nice big canvas. I need to blow things up, and I'm really bad because like now that I am used to having like technology, I have actually, and let's be honest, who hasn't tried to make an actual book have bigger font?
Oh yeah,
we've all done it, right? But yeah, it blows my mind like the things that they're able to create without having that sort of physical interaction.
Well, it's a different kind, like you said.
It's so cool.
But it's a different kind of art.
Exactly.
It's a different kind of artist.
Different kind of art, different process, the way your brain connects to it. Honestly, I think is different. Like,
and my daughter's gonna come up a million more times in this conversation.
I love it.
But she thinks in that 2-dimension, and she's capable of it. And she's brilliant at it. Me, on the other hand,
get that? Yeah.
I can't because I'm a theater artist. I think in set design. I think in dimension. I think in movement and on all of it work. And one of my previous occupations was a puppeteer, and I built puppets. And it's fur and wood and string and glue. And one of my rules is if you're not making a mess, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
That's my workshop. So if you go down and it's a mess.
Oh, my floor is covered in paint. My husband's like, why?
Yeah, my wife and I disagree on this rule, so that's another discussion.
Yes.
But I understand the notion of the tactile nature of certain kinds of art forms.
Well, and it's interesting too because you talk about like 2D versus 3D, and like I've spent a lot of the last year focusing on portraiture, because I would really, really love to be able to just like go to St. Louis or go to Chicago and hang out like in St. Louis on the Del Mar Loop or something and just do portraits, because that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on them, and like when I do it, I think from like the skull out, and it's so funny because it's very much like sculpting to me. And so and sometimes with art it is a very 2D thing, and it's very cool, but then sometimes like for me I approach it from like this inside out where you have to like build it up, and thinking of it in terms of like a 3D like modeled object, and I think of it like sculpting, and it's so weird, but like it works,
right?
And
but it's fun to hear because you starting to recognize your own process.
Yes.
And I've met some artists who haven't gotten there yet.
It takes a while, and I think part of it is a lot of artists feel, self-included, feel sort of this, I want to have cohesive work, right? I want to have work that, like, you look at Van Gogh and you know it's Van Gogh. When I see modern artists that mimic the style, I'm like, that's clearly like somebody that like, and not that there aren't lots of different artists that did, and he wasn't the only one that had that style, but you can definitely see where the inspiration comes from.
Right.
It's hard because you want to feel cohesive. You want to feel like people can look at your work and recognize it as yours. Even I struggle with it sometimes because I have like different sets of styles. So I've got like this tarot series where it's very like more on the realistic end, more, you know, very much like that Renaissance art with all the symbolism and all of the, it's all like really over the top. And but a lot of other things, it's...
Now, I will respectfully disagree with you.
Yes.
In the fact that I don't think, as artists, our work has to be cohesive.
No, I agree that it doesn't have to be. I think that I think it's like an internal design, at least for me.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of artists sort of feel that way in some ways. I don't necessarily think that it's a truth or a need.
Okay.
I think it's this... I think it comes from a desire to have, for me, I don't want to be famous. I don't want people to know my name. It's why I use an artist tag. But I want my work to touch people. I want it to be known. And I think for me, part of that is wanting that cohesion so that people can be like, oh, this means something to me. Let me look at... Like, I'm very much about getting very into specific artists. And that's across styles. So, like, my favorite actor is Mads Mikkelsen. I've seen almost every one of his movies.
Right.
I haven't seen all of the Danish ones because I have to, like, they're not streaming, so I have to, like, pay for them and take my time. Those performances to me are so recognizable that I can look, it doesn't matter what the plot is. If he's in this movie, I'm probably going to like it. I know I'm going to, you know, and so for me, it's the same way where I want people to be able to say, oh, wow, this really touched me.
It feels like a...
Give me more of that.
Right.
Give me more of... Because it builds like this sort of... It's like building a house around myself and building a family and building friends. It's why, like, when I talk about Hannibal being my favorite show, I love the movies, I love the show, I love the fan fictions, because it's like coming back to people that you know, coming back to friends, and I think the art can be very much the same way.
There's a certain recognition that feels right.
Yes,
okay.
that is much more concise.
Okay. That makes sense. I'm going to throw another term. Is your artwork, do you have an audience in mind? Or when you work, or is it...
It depends on the piece.
And again, it's because you say you don't paint just for yourself.
Yeah.
But you do paint for yourself.
I do.
But is there an audience? I mean, you've constantly said you want to touch people, which I think is inherent to most every artist. You know, there's an expression, there's something I gotta...
Yeah.
But is there an audience? Is there a specific audience? Is there a type of audience?
Honestly, I've noticed more and more that I make art for other artists in a lot of ways.
Really?
I pointed it out, I think it was to my mom recently, where I was like, no, to be honest, like, I've probably sold more things to, like, other artists or bought work from... She's like, so you all just buy each other's work? I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Oh, heck yeah.
Like, that's what we do, because we see... we see everything that goes in, and it's fun. Like, and I love trading pieces, and like that's my. And so
it's a little support group as well.
It is. It is like a little support group, but. So it depends on like the series, because I have a few different series. So like my tarot series, I really want to like, I love touching people obviously that are interested in like the occult or like interested very much in like Greek mythology, or not just Greek, but like Greek, Macedonian, Roman, like that whole sort of regional. So like the painting that got me really back into painting regularly was the Death card from tarot, and it's all themed on like the sacred band of Thebes, which like if you look at it, if you don't know the story, like you would maybe never know, right? But for me, like sharing those stories is a big thing, because, and that's really what I'm trying to do with a lot of my art, is especially like with that series, it's very much about storytelling. I do have a lot of just like fun animal art. It's colorful, it's bright, it's less about subject matter and more about shape and color, and I love color, I love texture. I love it's so hard for me to nail it down, because there's no one storyline, no one style, no one thing that I'm trying to make for one. I want to make art that touches everybody, and so I try and but I start with me, right? And so that's where it starts. It has to be something I'm identifying with. It has to be something that, so even when I take on commission work, if it's not something that I think I can do, I'll tell you that. Like, I was talking with a friend and local business owner recently, and we were talking about some pieces that are going to be D&D themed, and which I'm so excited about, because I connect to that a whole lot. But like, even in terms of style, like his initial ideas, I was like, I love your ideas. Let me hook you up with an artist that I think is going to suit that, if that's what you want. This is what I can do. This is what it would look like. This is like, how does it make you feel? What kind of like, because it needs to be something I can mimic styles. A lot of artists can mimic things, but I don't want
to do that.
I want it to move me, and because it's moving me, I want people to see that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It's like, I'm
well, so regardless of, especially in like a commission situation, there's at least an audience of one.
Yeah.
But there's still a conversation between the two of you in terms of what's going to happen on the canvas. That's interesting, because I tell people this all the time. As a theater person, I have this deep-seated mistrust of the fourth wall. So separating your audience and your art, your performance, feels false to me. So the more you can blend those two somehow, and that sounds exactly what you're talking about. Because especially in that kind of situation where you're trying to blend.
And that's really kind of who I am as a person, and it can be really problematic in some ways. Like, I won't lie, I had somebody the other day, I was ordering cookies for our event, and he was asking me like which flavors I wanted and what. I'm like, I don't know. He surprised me, and he's like, I can't make your decision for and I'm like, no, you're right. I have to make my own. But I want input. I want everybody's input. I am a person that thrives in community. So I want everybody's input, because we're all different. And I know that like when I get stuck inside my own head, it gets very cyclical, and then it becomes very toxic.
So again, it comes back to this conversation you have in real time when you're painting with friends.
Exactly.
It's whether or not it's direct information about the art piece, it's still information about the artwork that's happening.
Exactly.
And it will influence regardless.
Yes. Yep. And I do, and I lean on those opinions quite a bit. And it's not so much, like I do things exactly, the way somebody says, but like I use like my husband's a huge input person, where I'm like, I feel like it's almost done, but it's missing something and I don't know what. And he'll come and just be like, it needs a crow. Or like, it needs a this, or it needs a that.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, perfect, yes. So, or I'll use tarot cards for that. Like, if I don't know what I want to do, that happened with this great identity piece that I did for the Boneyard show at Soul Care, where I knew it wasn't finished and I was just stuck. And I'm like, this is supposed to be about my own identity. Like, I really need to try and not outsource too much because I want to try and keep it very pure because I'm trying to tell my own personal story. And I was struggling. And then I was like, I don't know what else to do. And so I flipped a tarot card and I went, oh my God, duh, it's the lion. I needed the lion. Like, it was just like, and so you can even see, like, I have this little white lion because I got a tattoo of him because he was in that death painting, the tarot painting, and then it's like he started all of it. Like, he was a part of it, the Sacred Band of Thieves and the white lion they found him. So they believe it was the Sacred Band, a mass grave underneath this white lion monument. And so, you know,
so even one tiny new drop of information will...
Yeah, it's just like it was a little symbol, not even a main part of the card. It was just like it's so funny how, like, just those little things, just one word, just one look, one
nudge is all it takes.
It's all it takes. And it's just about, like, being open.
That's funny. My wife and I do the same thing. Again, building puppets, sometimes I overthink and over-engineer a mechanism. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you make this eyes blink? You know, and in some sort of Rube Goldberg way, I have figured it out. But my wife will come down and say, why don't you just do this? And it's like, oh, for crying out loud, you're right.
Right. My husband builds, like, he was getting into woodworking, and so he's been building me, like, cool little tools and stuff. So, like, and it's so funny because I remember when I was like, I need stands for displaying stuff. And then I, like, tried to draw out this thing, and he was like, or I could just do this. And he tried to explain it to me time and time and time again. And I'm like, I don't get it, which is so dumb, being that I'm supposed to have this super visual brain. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he made them. I'm like, they're perfect. They're literally perfect. And then a friend bought some and had to make them some. And then I'm just like...
And now you're in business.
And that's what I keep telling him. Like, and he's about to make me this, like, great travel box for stuff so that I can bring my supplies and just, like, have a little briefcase type thing. And it's like, make tools for artists. Like, you're an artist. He's like, I don't know. I'm not very good at it. I'm like, do it. That's how you get good.
Bloody hell.
I wasn't that good at painting when I started.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. Like, it really is. It really is practice. It really is.
Oh, sure.
You know, because, yes, some things may come naturally, and I do want to be respectful of people's different abilities because, yes, I do have an ability that allows me to think in a way and move in a way that allows me to paint. That does come somewhat naturally, but it still had to be trained.
Oh, yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, when people say that they're not good at being at art, or they're not a good artist, or they could never, they always say, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure, or all I can do is a stick. It's always a stick figure. You ever notice how it's always a stick figure? And then it's like, okay, well, let me introduce you to Keith Haring, because he is this amazing American artist who, guess what? They were basically...
He outlined the stick figure.
Yeah, but it was... And I remember in high school, like, when I first learned about Keith Haring, and we ended up doing a big mural of his in our art room, and, like, because it was something that everybody could come in and partake in because of the style of art. We essentially were able to, like... painting by numbers. Myself and the art teacher, like, got it all laid out, and then everybody in the school was able to just come in and paint. And how wonderful is that even at the high school level, even when we have limited tools, limited education, we have students that, you know, because I went to a small school, and
this famous artist was able to inspire,
and they were all able to and actually partake. And so it's like, you don't have to be able to paint like Michelangelo to be a good artist. Like, yes, I admit that I have a soft spot for that type of art, but that is not all that there is. And frankly, sometimes it gets to be a little bit like, you want to branch out, you want to have more, you want to expand those horizons, because again, when you get so insular and you stop doing that, it gets kind of boring.
What I find myself meeting those kind of people who, nah, this, nah, that, probably not. Eventually, if I talk to them long enough, I will catch that idea coming out of their head. Like, there's your art. You know, and I don't have a good example of it other than, you know, some people just, they talk about say fan fiction for an example. They talk about their favorite thing and they say, I'd love to see this, I'd love to see that. That's your art.
That is.
Rewrite.
It is. And that's the thing is, to bring it back to my favorite show, like I always do. Anybody that's listening to this that knows me hears way too much about Hannibal, but that's one of the things that got me, honestly, because like if you look at the TV show, but really the movies are based off of the books, and then the TV show is essentially a fan fiction where they have switched up all sorts of like who gets whose lines and who's doing what, and it is its own fan fiction, and it's like, but it's this beautiful purple prose, like bloated, beautiful piece of pretentious art,
right?
And really, the fan fictions are just that too. And I'm seeing like these stories that people are writing that are 350,000 plus words.
Right.
These are novel length stories that people are writing that are legitimate. Like, this is real. I could really see this being another season. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Take what somebody else, like, we're all inspired by different things.
Right. Your husband, out of sheer practicality, you needed something, he built it. But he did it in his way, and that's his art.
It's so much better than anything that I could have
That's his art.
It is, and it's a very practical, useful. It's like a chair. It's like a table.
Right.
It's like,
and we're back to that argument.
And I love that because I can't do what I do as well as I do it without that support.
Without those tools that he is capable of producing. Yeah.
And I'm just not, like, I can use power tools, I can build stuff, but very much like you, it's very Rube Goldberg. Like, I always go too far. Even like
good at overthinking it.
I was at
really
plant mode the other day looking at plants, and I was asking all of these questions. I'm like, well, could I like get the plant to do this, or could I do? And he's like, or you could just let it grow. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I always like, I guess I could just let the plant do its thing. I always want to do more. I want to see
everything's
how
a bonsai.
Right. But I want it.
Oh, come on.
Everything has to be an art project.
Everything. Okay. Tell me about Prism.
So Prism is basically, we're pretty flexible. So Prism Studios, it's an arts initiative that I came up with on Half Christmas. I even remember the day we were on our way home from a Half Christmas party, because we should all be celebrating Half Christmas. It's how you drink eggnog in the summer. It's the only way. It's a great idea. And I'm that person my whole life. I've been, we should start a business. We should start a bar. We should start a game shop. We should start this. We should, because everybody kind of grows up, I think, in America with this idea of, I should start a business. The entrepreneurial dream.
Yeah, right.
And, it was always like, yeah, that's a great idea. We should call it this. We should do that. And it was never serious. And then I just remember I was in the car and we were turning on to Prospect. I remember the light and I went, I should open up a studio where people can just come and make art. I was like the Pottery Place, but with other types of art. So if anybody local hasn't been, the Pottery Place is so cool. You can go. It's a
lot of fun.
And the you just buy the already made pieces, because I'm a terrible sculptor. I want to be a sculptor.
Right.
I love. I'm just not. I struggle, and that's
not your art.
It's not my art, and that's okay. But you get to paint it, and I love that.
That is your art.
That is my art. And so I was like, you can just come in and do stuff. And so we offer paint and sip style classes, usually on request. The thing that I really had in my brain, and it's been the thing that's taken off, it's called Paint at Your Pace. And it's just getting people together in a room where we provide all of the art supplies, and you pick out your canvas size, and then we just hang out and make art and paint, and everybody paints at their pace, and you work on whatever you want to work on. And if you have questions, we have artists there that can help. If you need ideas, I have these crazy word searches I've made. I've got, all sorts of weird. I love playing the 3 minute sketch, 3 minute thumbnails with people, where I'm like, okay, let's grab a book. We're going to pick at random 3 to 5 words, and then take 3 minutes and just whatever first comes to mind, and do that 5 or 6 times. And by that 6th time, your brain is
spinning.
Yeah, that first 1 or 2, it's always the worst. It's so hard. But honestly, after if you spend 15 minutes doing that, you will come up with you will get those juices flowing.
Yeah. It's your basic writer's prompts.
Exactly. And so And so last night I was almost in tears. Last night we were at Brew Lab. We're at Brew Lab every Thursday night from right now it's 5:30 to 10. because it's the summer hours, and so we opened a little earlier. And we had 2 different groups in that they didn't appear to know each other. They were sitting at different tables. And at one point, one of them gets up from one table, and she's coming around, and she's looking at everybody's work, and then they start talking, different groups start talking to each other, and they're like, well, if you look at it like this, it's, there's this and this, but if you turn the canvas, then I did it like this and that, and explaining to each other, just totally unprompted from myself or from our staff, just interacting with each other and talking about what they're making and giving each other ideas. And it's like that right there, that getting to see in real time a community start growing in exactly the way that I had hoped it would. Like, it's a really, really rare gem. It's a really rare benefit. I don't know that many people get that opportunity to really witness that
right, but
in real time.
It sounds absolutely heavenly.
It is. It's, and it's so funny because sometimes people come in, and like we had one person come in last night. They were like, hey, I'm a digital artist. I'm really not a big painter. Is it okay if I like come and hang out anyway, even though I'm not really, and we're like, yes, bring your iPad, bring your stylus, come and hang out, talk, work on what works for you. Like, I don't care if you don't buy a canvas. Like, come and be with us. And just getting to know the community and getting to know other artists. Because, again, I was in my basement and I didn't know any other art. I didn't know any of the other local artists. Meeting Law Welly was like, aside from my good friend Josh Doniak, who is an amazing artist, and he's also an art teacher at Centennial. I didn't know any artists. We didn't talk art. I didn't have any sort of input. It was all like sort of online stuff, and like it's hard to, those established communities are kind of scary to get into.
Right, and it's hard to find your little
people.
tribe. Yeah,
and so just seeing that, and it's so cool in particular at Brew Lab because I think as a townie, I grew up with a very specific idea of campus.
Sure.
Which most of us townies kind of have. And it's not necessarily entirely, I mean, yes, the driving is a little terrifying, but really it's not that bad.
It's not bad in town.
It's not that bad. But the thing that's so cool, my favorite thing about being on campus right now is students walk by and there's this big, beautiful window at Nutricycle, so everybody can see what we're doing.
Right.
And I can just smile and wave at them, total strangers, and they smile and like come inside. I'm like, what's going on here? If I did that downtown, people might think I was a little nuts. Yeah. Like, let's be honest. Like, hi, and like, and they do. They'll stop and I'm like, hey, have some stickers. This is what we're doing. This is our QR code. It goes to our calendar. Like, no pressure, but like, throw it on a notebook and, then
spread the word.
Spread the word. Like, and we're here every day. Come back, or we're here every Thursday. You can come back. We're here every third Saturday, and just the interaction of the students. They want to be involved. They want to meet people. They want to do things. They want to experience stuff, and that is such a beautiful experience because I have this really kind of negative view of campus because I grew up very privileged. Frankly, I grew up in Ogden in a small town, and your traditional sort of house with a big yard and all of
middle
that
class
stuff. Yeah. And getting to experience so many amazing people from different cultures, from different countries, from different.
So Prism does this.
Yeah. That's really all we want to be, is just like a space that. So one thing that I like to say is I'm not an educator, I'm an encourager.
Okay.
I'm not a teacher. There are things that I can teach. There is knowledge that I can pass on, and I can pass it on in ways that work for some people. It may not for others. That's why we're working with other artists who teach differently, who can explain in other ways.
But you're providing a safe space for us artists and us newbies to this type of art, or you're providing a safe space for.
And that's really what it is. I want a place where people can go that they don't feel like they have to get it perfect right off the bat, where they can experiment, where it can turn out badly and you can scrape it off and start over. That's the best part about acrylic paint, is it's not like watercolors where if you make a mistake, you can't hide it. You can hide it. You can cover it. You can scrape it off and start over. I have a whole series of paintings that are called my Sonny's paintings, because they're just paintings that I didn't like how something went, so I threw some sunglasses over the part that I didn't like. And that's all I did. That's the only thing I did, and now it's part of a series. And people are like, how did you come up with the idea? I'm like, I didn't like the eyes, so I hid them. All I do is...
And that's art.
That's art. It's me hiding the things that I don't know how to do and finding new ways to do them. And that's so
art.
much fun.
And that's art. Oh, my stars. That's so good.
And yeah, and providing a place where, we're not going to, we keep a really close eye on what's going on with COVID. So we try and adjust that way. We always try and adjust for weather. We try, I have no issues. And I know that this probably doesn't always make me come off as the most fun person or the most, I will, if somebody's using language that I think is being unkind, I'll say something, because I don't know who,
And again, the safe space.
It's about curating a place where people can feel safe enough to let down their guard and create.
Thank you. Yes, I had a different phrase in mind, but that sums it up perfectly.
Because you have to feel safe to be creative.
Right.
And I think that we forget that a lot, that just as a society, that when you feel unsafe, it's very hard not only to be creative, but to do much of anything.
Yeah, agreed.
There's a really great comedy special by Moses Storm that called Trash White, where the very opening is crazy always beats scary. And he talks about how growing up in poverty, it's so much easier to deal with the craziness that you create for yourself than the absolute abject terror of what it's like to grow up in true poverty.
Right.
And it makes perfect sense to me when you're so anxious, when you're so unsure, when you feel like you're being judged, you feel like you're being looked at. It's the most terrifying thing to start. It's so hard to be genuine when you're second guessing everything you say and do.
Right.
And that's what I love about like Paint at Your Pace versus, and again, we do offer like the paint and sip classes. I enjoy those. But no matter how much I open it up with, these shouldn't all look the same. I don't want all of your paintings to look the same. I don't want it to look just like mine. I don't want them to look like each other. It should have its own style. I'm just giving you stepping stones. Play with it. Change the colors. Ignore me entirely and add an alien. Like, I don't care. Like, make it yours. But unfortunately, I think we're a little bit pre-programmed to compare. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's a pre-programmed thing or if it's societal.
I'm sure it's a societal thing, but I think that might be another podcast entirely. That might be a whole nother conversation.
That's
because
fair.
I think that I agree with you, but I think we could be here another 2 hours on that one.
Agreed. But that's sort of the beauty with Paint at Your Pace, is by just encouraging people to work on whatever makes them happy.
And I think that's fantastic.
It's so much fun.
I think that's fantastic.
And I just get to see some really cool art. And like, I really want to start getting, I need to start like getting like a name list, because we have these people coming in making amazing things. And so I really want to have like an end of year art show where like,
oh, what a grand idea.
Right. And just contact all of our customers that we've worked with and be like, hey, all of those pieces you made, if you want, we're going to have an art show, bring them in and display them, and we'll do it at the IMC.
Right.
And like, it'll be awesome. And I'm so excited because
I think that's a genius idea.
Well, and so many people think that their stuff isn't like good enough, and it's like, it is.
It is.
It is good enough, and I promise you that even if you only touch one person with your work, you've made a difference in somebody's life.
You win. Yeah, that's a win.
Even if you make a difference in your own life, that is truly the thing. If you can make something that touches you and makes you feel proud, feel good, and it's hard to do with art, and it's taken me a long time, and it's taken me a lot of sitting with my art and hanging my own art up in my house and being forced to look at it every single day. Hard to do.
Right.
It forced me to start appreciating what I am capable of. and to give people that chance to, even if they're not sure, it's like, show it. Please show it. I promise you, like, even if you're only touching you, even if you're only touching one person, think about the impact that has.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what's so cool about art.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to kind of wrap this up a little bit. I've got a couple more questions.
For
but
sure.
That's kind of my James Lipton end of the thing, end of the interview list. What about your art turns you on? What about it turns you on?
For me, a lot of my art, especially recently, it's very much body studies, portraiture. I really love painting nude art. I really love, and for me, it's enjoying the beauty of humanity and the beauty of bodies and the beauty of all of our differences and quirks and different shapes and different.
That's lovely.
And it's very much for me, like, I get very bored. If you could see underneath, I've got a lot of tattoos. I'm very much about color. And so, like, I kind of struggle. The one thing that I struggle with is doing things in, like, air quote, natural skin tones. So they're always colorful. But, like, for me, that's almost part of it, because especially I do a lot of painting my friends. I do a lot of portraits of people that I know, local artists, and getting to play with, like, showing who they are through color and texture and not just their image. It's almost like a way of getting to know the people that I care about in whole new ways. And to show them how much I love them and how beautiful they are to me. And that just gets me excited. It does. It just gets me excited to make more. And portraits especially, I never thought that I would be, like, big on doing portraits until the last year. And it started with...
but you're doing it your way.
Yes. And really, a lot of it started with Z. Snyder, who's a local author. Amazing. Wrote The Witch. And then The Witch and the Vampire came out last year, I believe it was. So it's 2 published books. Highly, highly recommend him. Phenomenal writer. And they are, like, my muse. They've always been, like, they're just this amazing person that I hearing them talk, hearing him, seeing him, like, just, they've always inspired me. And so getting to, like, do that and interpret them through my experience of them in a visual way, it's really fun. It's exciting.
What about it turns you off?
I don't like the game, like the business stuff, the pricing. I hate pricing, because for me it's very hard to put a number to it.
Sure.
And because my inclination is, I just want people to love it and enjoy it, but I also want to support myself and have, pay my bills and have health insurance. Yep. And so it's kind of a tricky line.
Capitalism and art are mortal enemies, but must live together.
That and especially with Prism and that sort of side of things, it's playing the business game. I don't like it, and I try not to do it as much as possible, which means I'm very, very upfront. And I don't know how much that has helped versus hurt us. I think probably a little bit of both, but I'll sit down if I'm having a business conversation and say, listen, this is what I can offer. I understand that it may not be financially what is expected in the business world, but, this is what we offer. This is what we can bring. And I truly believe, like, if you support our mission and give us a chance and give us space, just like Brew Lab did. We had that first month where we had to cancel 2 out of 4 events due to weather. We didn't have, I think we had several events where we had no people show up.
Right.
They took a chance on us, and now, last night, we had like 3 waves of groups coming in. And we live in not to be that capitalism, but capitalism society where it's like, if you don't bring people cold hard cash, it's very hard to get a foot in. And it's like, I can't provide that, but I can provide value.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us artists struggle with that exact conundrum,
and being taken seriously, I think, to some
Right.
extent, because again, there is this idea, if you're not financially successful, then you're not successful.
It's
And
not-
I don't,
Right.
that
And if
isn't all the case, but
Right, and if your art isn't successful financially, you're not a successful artist.
which is crazy,
Or you're
because
not an
how
artist.
many artists were successful when they were alive? Like, some, yes. But again, a lot of those, when you talk about those people that were well known in their time, especially, again,
Well, just think of it now. How many artists are out there now, not making a dime, but still being an artist?
exactly.
That's probably, I'm going to say, most of us. All of us do something. But
Yeah. It's hard. It's a fine line to walk. I think it's something that can be changed. I think it's something people want to change. In terms of like how we view artists and how we view art and the value that it brings to society. I just think that it takes all of us being loud about it as much as we can.
I think it takes these little pockets like the one you're creating at Prism to do that.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that kind of effort to relax people's minds about what it means to be an artist.
Yeah.
And
Well-
that's phenomenal.
And like I told you earlier before we started, really I wanted to be an artist. I'm like, I want to be a professional artist, but I don't want to do it alone. That's scary. So like
Yeah.
everybody needs to hop in the bus because we're going to go be artists together.
I'll drive, but you got to fill the bus.
Yeah, like we still got empty seats, so
Yeah.
let's go. We're gonna be artists.
Okay,
so it's a fun game.
last question. Where can we see some of your art?
So right now, I have art hanging up at the IMC. We actually have an art show that Prism is
what is the
hosting.
IMC?
It's the Independent Media Center.
Okay.
It's in Urbana, next to Lincoln Square Mall,
Okay.
in the same building as the post office. So when you
Right.
first enter the post office to your right, the IMC is off to your left, and it's this amazing community building that I've been to book readings, there's concerts, there's
Yeah,
a stage,
I've
there's
performed
art
there.
shows.
Yeah.
It's this, and it's such a gem, and so many people don't know about it. I didn't know about it.
Right.
And it's so cool because now Prism is a member, and so we're able to like host art shows, and we'll be there every Sunday with our Paint at Your Pace now. And so we've got several local artists hanging there right now, self included. I also have work hanging up at Soul Care in Urbana and at the Lair Hair Studio and Lounge downtown. And I have one piece hanging up at BUC Wealth Management.
Oh, fantastic.
In Urbana. So.
Anything online? Or does Prism have a site?
So Prism has a site. I have a site myself. So Prism is just prismstudiospaint.com.
Okay.
And then my personal site is ktcannibal.com. So it's KT Cannibal with a K, ANNIBAL.
I will look them up and put them in the descriptors.
Awesome. And then there's like links to each other on the sites.
Fantastic.
So, and we love to update our Prism site with our guests' art. So if you want to see kind of the things that our guests are making and not just us, like...
And I'm assuming information about where they can join in.
Yes, absolutely. We've got... currently, we are doing 2 regular events a week. So we are Thursday nights at Brew Lab from 5:30 to 10, and Sundays at the IMC from 2 to 5, and then at Brew Lab every 3rd Saturday of the month. And that's a really special one to me because the coffee shop actually stays open with us on that particular day. Usually it closes, and then we just have that side room. But on that 3rd Saturday, the 10% of the coffee sales go to the Trevor Project.
Oh.
And so it's called Queer Coffee, and it's just,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be, queer, be an ally, be anybody. Come hang out. A lot of it's fundraising, and
Right.
it's just, again, community and being together and
Right.
letting people know, like, just providing those spaces that people are going to be able to come and feel safe and.
But yeah.
And yeah, we've got all of that listed on our website, and you may start seeing like little flyers and like stickers around town. We're big on QR codes because like it's the easiest, fastest. Just snap
Sure.
a QR code and then save it. So if anybody wants stickers, you can get those for free at Art Coop at Lincoln
that's-
Square. We've just got a bunch of stickers with our QR codes that are sitting up at the counter that are free. So if you're ever curious and you don't want to have to like look it up, if you're there, you could always grab one of our QR codes there.
Cool. Katie, thank you so much. This has been an amazing venture.
Thank you.
I know the conversation is, I love this kind of conversation because it not only does, I think it affirms both of us, builds us both up, but I love listening to how other people think about the same things I do.
Yeah.
And it's never the same way, but it's always informative and always makes me think in bigger directions. Does that make sense?
No, I absolutely agree with that.
So I can't thank you enough for spending the morning with me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and Prism appreciates it.
Oh yeah, we will put it out there and promote you as best we can.
Appreciate it. It's definitely something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's truly a blessing to be meeting so many people in our community that when they hear about this mission are so active in trying to support that mission.
Right.
And I love that. I so blessed, such a privilege to get to be a part of that, and to get to have a hand in that. So thank you very much.
And thank you for allowing me into it. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for hanging around and geeking out with us. If you enjoyed the show, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And more importantly, join the conversation and leave us a message or comment. We'd love to hear about your nerdy art. Thanks again, and join us next week for more Art Nerds.